Okay, let's see. Hello, I guess audio works. Okay, learning objectives, ID, how to run out code, reminder of a list, the list cleverly. Okay. Loops want to say the same question multiple times. Use of one loops or use of double loop. Doesn't loop the for loop for x in my list. So initiate the for loop. Initiate x at the loop variable with change, which value changes after each iteration. We look in our list. So the first time we do an iteration, x takes in the value of our first item in our list. The action we perform is to print x. So we should print ABC. So if we just put this in our ID, my list. This time we have an iterable we hit. This time we have a string. So range is a numerical function in Python. Generates a sequence of numbers. For example, here range 6, print 6 numbers. And as you guys know, we start from 0, so we print from 0 to 6, but it will not include 6. Okay, so if we wanted up to 6, we would have to do 7, because it would print all the numbers from 0 to 6, but not including 7. Let's we have a while loop, a flow chart. No, it's control I. Oh, good morning, everyone. My name is Middle, and I'll be conducting your lesson day 3 for the half-term code camp with Code X. So on day 3, we'll be covering loops. The learning objectives for today's lesson is to understand what loops are, understand what a for loop is, and we will also cover how to write a for loop. Therefore, we'll cover the syntax, how to initiate a for loop. Also, we'll look at the range function, which is the input function in Python, and see how we can use it. Just a quick reminder before we start, we'll still be using a store ID.
Hi, how's it going?
Oh, hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good as well. I'm sorry I joined a little bit late.
So good. I'm very nervous.
Don't be there a nice bunch if we are teaching the same people.
Is it how many people is there?
A bit under 30. Yeah, 30-ish, 30.
Oh my
It's
god.
okay. They all usually have their cameras off and they usually spam the chat. So I've got you covered and I'll cover the chat for you.
All right, hopefully. Do you know I was looking at the slides
Mhm.
for the lesson?
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like some things shouldn't be on it, but
Yeah.
well, I don't know. I have to cover it, I guess.
Yeah. Like what exactly are you referring?
So basically, we're doing loops, right?
Yeah.
So we cover a bit of loops, and there's a task.
Mhm.
I'm confused. You know the task? Do I do the task or do I make them do the task?
I think it depends on your teaching style anyways. So
Let me
um,
see if I can share my screen, by the way.
you could make them do the task, or you could work through the task yourself. It's up to you.
Okay.
Okay, there, I've started my video. Be working.
1 second. 1 second. 1 second. Oh, I have to end the meeting, I think.
Oh, how come?
Start again because basically I had to give permission for me to share my screen, something like that.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. If you're the host, then I don't think it's an issue. Um, Host disable participant screen sharing. So I think you're supposed to go into the settings if you can see.
I
Um,
did that. Click the button, but now it says end meeting for or leave meeting. You know what? Let me just try again.
yeah, try.
Let me just desktop one share. Oh,
Oh, it's working. I can see your screen.
okay. Is this my screen?
Yes.
All right.
Um,
Okay, okay.
where are the slides? There we are.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Perfect.
So what do? Slideshow, right?
Yeah.
And when I want a code sign, I just leave it and code, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. How much time do we have? 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's about 9.
Okay. Okay, I'll show you the exercise we have to do, right?
Mhm.
So if you go down, so we duplicate a dice roll game. But here's the problem. We cover loops. How can they know what random is?
You need to explain to them that it's a library, right?
Mm.
You need to explain kind of every line to them and break it down.
Oh, do I not code it myself in front of them?
Sorry, what was that?
Do I not like code it from scratch in front of them?
Yeah, you do if you'd like. It would be better if you just kind of like type and explain
Yeah.
because I mean the class that I was in on Monday, the tutor then did that. So he just kept typing and he continued explained everything.
Okay.
Or
Have you
also,
done your first lesson?
I haven't taught yet, but I've just been on chat a few times.
Oh, fair enough.
How about you? Is this your first lesson?
Yeah. First time I haven't done any kind of tutoring before, but
Oh,
yeah. Oof. What'd you do? Did you go uni?
I just finished. I'm working now. Yeah.
What is it? What'd you work as?
Just sales.
Where'd you go in uni? Like
Not
what uni?
not
Nottingham.
yeah. Yeah. How about you?
I go Queen Mary University,
Oh, cool. What do you do?
computer science. What'd you study?
Economics.
Like, oh, and you're trying to do switch to tech?
Um, no. No.
They tee off for fun.
I tutor to keep my Python skills up to check. But other than that, I just
My Python skills aren't even that good to be honest, but I just started it this year because last year I did Java in it.
sorry, what
Now
was
I'm
that?
doing so last year I did Java and I just started doing Python like a month ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I heard that it's very transferable, so it should be fine.
yeah. Goddamn 6 minutes. Mm-mm-mm. I have a couple screens here with some notes, so during the meeting I might look to other places just in case I need to
Yeah,
look at
that's
some stuff.
just remember we can see every single thing on your screen though, so
Oh no, I have like a separate computer.
okay, yeah, that's fine.
I think I have anything on my screen anyway. That should be fine. Would like to report this computer screen.
Yeah, you
Okay.
go on system preferences, I think.
It's all right. I think we can leave it for now. Where's the Zoom? Oh wait, I can't do anything. How do I make this bigger? Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Where's
Wait,
the actual where I admit people in and stuff and the meeting stuff like that? Oh, where did this come from?
it's just on the Zoom meeting page, I think.
Can you see this? It tells me to log in. Is it
Uh,
here? Nope, it's not here.
no, I think it's just on the actual app. So just give it a few seconds to load up.
It tells me to sign in here though.
Oh, I don't see that for some reason. I just see
Oh,
my charm on your screen.
let's stop sharing. Oh, so now I'm back. So I guess I have to stop sharing. That doesn't make any sense though.
I can admit people in eventually.
There's one person waiting, right?
What was that?
There's one person waiting, right? On the like to join.
Why didn't that show up for me? Oh, it's not showing up for me.
Yeah, I got one person. Let me see. His name is Zachariah Muni.
I see. Yeah, it's on the participant list, but for some reason I can't let people in, I think, because I'm joined in as a guest. So I think you,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So at 11, no, I mean at 10 I'll start letting people in.
Yeah, if you like to. Yeah, 10's good. Or 9:59 even.
Okay, how long do I wait for until I start?
Um, just give it like 2 or 3 minutes, and I think you should be able to start teaching because people take some time to join. So yeah.
Okay.
Apparently when you're screen sharing, you can still see the chat and let people in. So
I'm guessing this is the chat. Yeah, I think I can. I just
yeah.
need to move around a bit. Yeah, should be fine.
You should probably keep the trinket link copied and paste into the chat because usually the kids in the last sessions kept asking for the trinket link because they kept losing it. So
Should I put it now?
yeah.
All right. Oh,
And then you'll also be able to see the chat during the lesson.
I won't be.
You will, I think. And
Okay.
I mean, I'm mostly handling the chat. So if you want,
Mhm.
you can ask the questions, or I will unmute and stop you and ask you a question from the chat. So you don't need to worry too much about the chat unless you feel like your content is going by really fast and you need to pace yourself to fill up the 45 minutes or 50 minutes.
Okay.
So yeah. So no one should unmute and ask you questions. So you basically have like an undisrupted flow of just explaining the content.
Okay.
So just make sure you toggle between the trinket page and your actual like coding and also the slides. And that's mostly how the
Okay.
lessons go. So explain like
Okay.
the line of code that you're writing down on trinket. That's usually how it should go.
So stuff like these, I'll write out and visualize it for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be the exact thing as well, right? You can do whatever you want. Like it doesn't have to be
Okay.
carrots, keys. It can just be pen, pencil, eraser. Just
Yeah.
your
Just move behind the keyboard. Oh my God. One more minute.
I think you start letting people in now.
All right. Let's go. Admit, 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 admit. Morning, everyone.
Hi everyone.
I think we have 4 people, actually 5 people now. So before we start, we're going to wait another 2-3 minutes just to give everyone time to join, and then hopefully we'll start with the lesson.
It would be good to if you guys could turn your cameras on just so you can engage with the lessons a bit more. So we can see any confused faces or happy faces. And yeah. How did you guys find yesterday's lesson? Do you want to put it in the chat? What did you think about yesterday?
Let's see the chat.
Oh,
Couldn't zoom in. I think we covered variables, inputs and outputs yesterday on yesterday's lesson.
oh, I thought that was Monday's lesson. I think yesterday was lists. Yeah, yesterday might.
I'm not too sure.
So hopefully, Jamal, you didn't miss too much, and we won't be going over the things you missed yesterday. So you won't
So
be.
wait another couple minutes. Waiting room to meet. Okay. Me. People will be joining throughout the lesson, right? So every now and then I should check. Is anyone on the waiting list, right? Chat. I think a lot of people missed yesterday's lesson. There's 8 people at the moment. I'll wait just a couple more minutes. I think there should be a bit more. Has any of you done loops before? Okay. We are 10 people now. 11 people. Why is that? Did you not have the link for it? Oh, uh, should I start? Should I wait another minute?
I think you're good to start now.
Okay.
Well, into 10 minutes into the call, so.
Okay. Okay. So, slideshow. So can everyone see my screen properly? Okay. Just let me put a couple people in. Okay. So, welcome everyone. My name is Midul, and I'll be your tutor for today. With me is Malaika, and she'll be handling the chat. And so, if you guys have any questions, any time throughout the lesson, you can just type in the chat, and hopefully Malaika will answer as quick as possible. So today is day 3 of your half-term coding camp with Codex, and we'll be covering loops. So the lesson objectives for today's lesson is hopefully by the end of the lesson, we will know what loops are. We'll have a look at a for loop. So how a for loop works, what we can do with it. I'm going to show you guys how to write a for loop. So the syntax of the for loop will be shown to you guys. And we'll also look at the range function, which is a built-in function in Python, and see how we can use it in a for loop. Just a quick reminder to you guys, I've put it in the chat, but I'll put it again now. So the ID that we're going to use to run our code is Trinket. I'll just share the link to you guys. So what is the chat? So that's the link. If you guys click on the link, it should lead you to this page over here, in which you guys can we're going to be writing our code on the left hand side. So let's do a print. So if we put print hello, and to run our code, we can just click the play button, and hopefully the output should be on the right hand side. If at any point you guys want to share your code so I can look at it, or Malak can look at it, you guys can click the button over here, get the link, copy the link, and you can paste on the chat so we can see what's going on with your code, and hopefully we can help you. Yeah. Okay. You got it. So if everyone's got the code, got the ID, we can start. So as I mentioned, the output window is on the right hand side. So anytime you guys write a piece of code and you run it, the output will be on the right hand side. And if there's any error, the program will tell you and we can look at it together. Okay, so just a quick reminder, I've heard that yesterday you guys have covered lists. So lists are basically a program structure where you can use to store multiple items into one variable. So for example, if you're developing a program which deals with ingredients of food, or like vegetables in this case, we have carrot, peas, and onions. One way you guys can store these items is one variable per item. However, this is not very efficient, as there's a better way of doing it and quicker way of doing it, in which we can create an array and put all our items into one variable. Therefore, it's easier to handle and it's more compact and makes the code more efficient as well. In case you guys don't know what an array is, anytime you guys see a variable and you guys see the square brackets, it's usually an array. It's coming in. So just a quick reminder, I believe you guys have covered this yesterday, but whenever you guys have a list, you can output the contents of the list by using this operator over here, the star operator. So for example, let's create a list and see how this works. So if we create a list of items, let's say items equals, to create an array, and let's put pen, and we can have something else like pencil, something else like paper. To print all the contents of the item, we can simply use a print function and just put the star sign, print items, and this should print out all the contents of the list. If you guys don't use the star sign over here, it will still print the contents, but however, it will include all the annotations on the side, so like the speech marks, commas, and also the brackets, and we don't want something like that. We just want the contents of the list, so it's better to use the star operator. Another thing we can do with this operator is, say we're trying to print every single items on the list. However, we also want to add like a space or a letter in between every single item. What we can do is we can add a comma. We can initiate a variable. Let's call it separation because we want separation between our words. And we can just put a comma and a space. So therefore, every time a item from this list is printed, we're going to have the item. So let's say pencil. And then we're going to print the variable separation, which is a comma and a space. As you guys can see, we have pen, comma space, pencil, comma space, paper. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask on the chat. And also, if I'm going too fast, if you guys can just let me know on the chat, I'll slow down a little bit. Yeah, so this is what I've just shown you guys how to print the items on a list, and you should print all the ingredients. And I've also covered the separation. So make sure you guys, when you do try to add any type of separation or like any type of space in between your elements, make sure you guys use the comma over here, because if you don't, it's usually not going to work. It should give you like an error on the program. So you guys might know the punctuation is very important with Python. If you have any spelling mistakes on your code, it's most likely going to cause a error. Okay, so loops. We use loops when we want to complete a certain task a multiple amount of times. So there are different types of loops we can use. I'll give you guys an example. So when we want to perform a certain task multiple amount of times, we usually know how many times we're going to perform a task. We usually use a for loop. However, if we're uncertain about the amount of times, and it varies depending on the program the user's input, things of that nature, we use a while loop. We're going to look at both of them today, so I'll introduce you guys to both of them. So a simple type of loop that we just already looked at is the star sign that we use to star operator that we use to print all the items from our list. Just to give you guys an idea of how this works, this star operator is considered a loop as it performs an action a numerous amount of times. For example, since we're printing the items on our list, it goes through one by one and prints them one by one, making it since it does it multiple times, it's considered a loop. It's a simple kind of loop. We don't use it as much, but it's still considered a loop. So does anyone have any questions so far? I'll give you guys a minute to type, just in case you guys want to ask any questions. Have a look before we begin with for loops. And if you guys could kindly mute your mics as well, that would be nice. So someone asked if they can get this PowerPoint afterwards. I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure if you guys will receive the PowerPoint after this, but I'll find out for you guys, and hopefully someone will let you know on tomorrow's lessons, because I'm not too sure and I don't want to give you guys wrong information. But hopefully you guys will be able to access the PowerPoint slides so you guys can look over them. But in the meantime, if you guys can, you should take notes during the lesson, and yeah, therefore you can have a look over after we're done, just to revise kind of what we went through. Okay, so to cover loops. Okay, so the first loop we're going to look at is a for loop. As I mentioned before, for loops are usually used when we want to perform a certain task a numerous amount of times. However, in this case, we have to know, or we have some kind of information as to how many times we want to run a certain action. For example, we have a list here. This list has 3 elements, and we want to print every single items in our list. We could do what we did before, use the star operator to print all the items in our list. Or another way we can do this is we can use a for loop. To write a for loop, first thing you do, we type for. So the syntax to initialize a for loop is, first of all, you type for. We also initialize an element, in this case x. This acts as the variable loop, which changes after every single iteration, and it also takes in the value of the items in our list. For example, if you run this loop during the first iteration, x will take in the value of a, and it will perform the print function, therefore print the value of a, and this will repeat itself until it goes through the whole list. So if you guys want to visualize this, we're going to make this right now. So let's replicate the list. Let's do my list equals. Guessing there's vegetables inside, carrot, peas, and apples. And if we want to print every single item in our list, what we can do is we initiate a for loop. So for, we set a variable. It's easy. We usually do X. It's easy to, or I is very good. In our list, my list, we want to print. We want to print the value of each element. So as you guys can see here, we printed every single item, but it's different than before. As you guys saw, it was all in one line. And this time, each time it does iteration, it goes to a different line. So it prints one by one. We have a question in the chat. So is everyone okay with the syntax of a for loop? So does everyone understand how to write a for loop? You guys should try writing the code as you go along. So if you guys do get any errors, we can just quickly look at it to see if you wrote the code the correct way. So X is the variable which acts as the parameter for the loop. So for example, every time an iteration is performed, the value of X changes. So for the first time the loop is performed, the value of X is 0. And the first, and A also has the index 0 in our array. So for the index 0 in our list, we're going to print its value. Therefore, we'll print the value of A. Does that make sense? Oh, ABC, it doesn't have to be ABC, like as you saw on the example I did. So let me just quickly go back. It doesn't have to be ABC. Inside the list, you can have anything. So on the PowerPoint slides, we had ABC. Here we have carrots, peas, and apples, but we can have anything because our list can it can even contain numbers. You can print the numbers. So yeah, it doesn't really signify. Just to give you guys an example with ABC. So X is for Isaac didn't understand X. So X is the variable for the loop. Every time we initiate a for loop, we need to have some sort of variable which keeps track of the loop, so it performs the correct amount of times. Once, as X is initialized, it starts from the value 0. And every time a iteration is performed, the value of X goes up. In this case, we're looking for a list of an array. The items in an array have indexes. So the first item in an array, which is A, has the index 0. Second item is the index 1. So third item is the index 2. So every time each iteration is performed, since X is the value 0 and it looks inside the list, A also has the value 0 and it will print the first value. That way, every time it goes up, so the second time the iteration is performed, the value of X will be 1. Therefore, we'll print the second item. Another iteration, the value of X will be 2 and we'll print the C. Also, Malika has given you an answer above. So if you can read that. Yeah, so good. So before we had a list with different elements and we printed every single element. But another way we can use this, instead of printing every single element, for example, here we have a string. And does anyone want to guess what this code will output when we run it? I'll give you guys a couple seconds to answer. Does anyone want to guess what? Oh, sorry, I changed the slide by accident. So does anyone want to guess what this loop will output? So in this case, we don't have a list. We just have a variable with a string inside, which has, just give you guys a hint, it has many different letters. It will print banana, but how will it print banana? Will it print banana as a word, or will it go through every character? Yes, that is correct. So since we don't have a list, it's not just an item. We have a string which has different characters. Yes, that is correct. We will print B, A, then N, then A, then N, A, because instead of going, since we don't have a list of items, we will have one string, which is a string is made of characters. X will go through every single character and just perform its action, which is a print function. So let's try this out just to show you guys. Oops, sorry guys. So we have, let's say, what's the example they used here? Just quickly use an example. Oh, make sure you guys also use indentation, the space after your loop. Oh, banana. Problem is this. Make sure you guys use the correct speech mark. So yeah, you guys were correct. We do print one letter at a time as it goes through each character. You guys should try this as a go along. You guys also try writing this yourself, so you guys can also play around with it. You can change the word to, I don't know, apple, and see what it does. Therefore, it's a good experience for you guys as well. So far, so good. If everything's good, we can proceed to the next. Does anyone want to guess what this code will perform? Do we have to write one sort? I'm not sure what you mean by that. Write once or twice. 6 times, yep. So range is a function which generates a sequence of numbers. In this case, the range is 6. I'm gonna ask you guys a question. So do you guys think the range is 1 to 6, or is it different? Is it 1 to 6, or does it start from somewhere else? Does it start from 0? Is it 1 to 5, or is it 0 to 5? Isaac thinks it's 0 to 6. So Isaac says 0 to 6. So if we do count from 0 to 6 and we include 0, that would not be 6 numbers though, because if from 1 to 6 is 6 numbers. Yeah, so that is correct. Yeah, it'll be 0 to 5 because we always start from 0. So it will just print the value of x. And as I said to you guys before, the value of x always starts from 0 and it goes up on increments of 1 every single time an iteration is performed. So if you guys want to try, put this in your IDE. Let me just quickly exit this. Oh. Sorry guys. So if you put this in our IDE, we should be able to see what range is actually doing. Don't forget to use indentation, as Malika said on the chat. Yeah, so as you guys said, it is 0 to 5. So it doesn't show on the selection side, but if you guys do want to start from 1 and you want to print the value of x, what you can do is put another number before. Therefore, it does 1 to 6, but it will not include 6. It will stop at 5 because it never includes the maximum number. If you guys want 1 to 6, put 7. You should get 1 to 6. But we won't need that for now because we're just looking at loops. If everyone is okay so far, on the next task, I will be writing a program for you guys. So if you guys have any questions, ask now, and afterwards you guys can follow me through a program that I'm going to write. Okay, so no questions. So I'm going to start. So for our next task, we're going to duplicate a dice roll game. If any of you guys have an idea of how to do this, feel free to do this by yourself. Like, obviously, you can look at me while I do it, but you can also try to type it yourself. Should be good practice for everyone. Okay, let's go. So, as you guys know, when you throw a dice, the number that you get is not guaranteed. It will depend on the number of sides it has, and depends on luck as well, because the number you get is random, depends on how you throw it and stuff like that. So to write a program like this, we're going to need some sort of random function. To do this in Python, you have to import the random library. So to do this, we just type import on the top of our code, random. And now we can use all the built-in random functions that are within Python. I'm going to use some of them. You guys will see how to use it. So the first thing we're going to need, we can either assume how many sides a dice has, or we can ask the user how many sides the dice has. To do this, let's initiate a variable. Let's call it sides. How many sides the dice has. Since we're going to let the user decide this, we're going to need to have an input from the user. Send the link. What would you like the link of? Trinket? I can send the link of Trinket. If that's what you want.
Don't worry about it. I've got it.
Oh, my bad. So if you guys, so the input from the user will have to be an integer. Therefore, we're gonna set as an integer this variable and have an input from the user, and we're going to ask a question. The bracket here. So, how many sides does the dice have? As you guys write a program, you guys also can try run it as you write each line, just to see if it works. So if you do have any errors, we can just quickly fix it. So let's say 4. That's fine. It works. So another information we'll need is we need to know how many times the user wants to roll the dice. We can't assume it because they can roll it once, or they can roll it 5 times. So we'll let the user also decide how many times they want to roll a dice. So let's call another variable called rolls. This is also going to be an integer, and it will also be inputted by the user. So we're going to input. We're going to ask a question. How many times do you want to roll the dice? So now that we have these 2 information, we can actually write our code for the dice. Since there are going to be multiple rolls, we're going to have to, can we use if else? Can we use if else? Well, you could technically, if you want to create a program where it asks the user how many times, if they want to input it themselves, then you can use if and else. If they don't want to input it themselves, you can assume how many sides it has and how many rolls it has. But that's not what we're going to do right now. We're just going to assume that they're going to be deciding. So so since we need to print out all the different results, which is more than 1, can be 5, they might want to roll the dice 5 times, even 10 times if they want to. Therefore, we're going to have to do a operation a multiple amount of times. So this sounds like a good time to use a loop. But we're going to initiate a loop. We're going to write for. We're going to send a variable to control the loop as it will go up and see how many times we have to run it. And this time we're going to do in range. What's the range of this loop going to be? How many times will the loop run? Does anyone want to guess? Why 7? 4. Okay, so the range of the loop will depend on how many times they want to roll the dice. Because we're going to have, so if they roll the dice 10 times, we're going to have 10 different results. Well, the answer is that we don't know yet because it will be decided by the user. So the for in range rolls. So the loop will run for as many times they have to roll the dice. Does that make sense to everyone? Make sure you guys put a colon afterwards. Yeah. So what do we want to do? We just want the result of our output. So to do this, we're going to use the random function, and I'll show you guys how to use that. So we're going to print, let's say, result. Oh, sorry about the spelling. Result. And we're going to put a comma, and we're going to use a random function. To use the random function, the syntax for it is random dot random integer, and we need to give it randint. And to use this, we need to give it a minimum number and a maximum number. So when you roll a dice, the minimum number has to be 1, because 0 doesn't make sense. You don't get any points. So 1. And does anyone want to guess what's the maximum number generated will be? I'll give you guys a hint. We have two variables that do two different things, so we used one of them. So what's the other one for? So the random will be based on the sides. So if a dice has 6 sides, as Rudy said, then my highest number will be 6. But if they want a, I don't know, 4-sided dice, 10-sided dice, the highest number will be 4 or 10. But in this case, it will be decided by the user. We're going to do sides. And hopefully this should work. Hopefully we don't get any errors. Let's try out. So let's see, how many sides does the dice have? Let's give it let's give it 5 sides. And how many times do you want to roll the dice? I'll roll it 5 times. As you guys can see, somehow we got 5 3 times, but it should be random. Let's just do it again. Show you guys that we can get different numbers. So we have 5 sides, 5 times. As you guys can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3. So the program does work. Okay, so if the user says 5 rolls, it doesn't. So since it starts from 0, it goes from 0 to 5, but it does not include 5. But it's still 5 times, because 0, we have 0, we have 1, we have 2, 3, and 4. So that's 5 times. If that makes sense, yeah. Okay, so hopefully you guys followed through with that. You guys could have obviously if later on we do share the slides, there's a link here. What if you just Rudy, if you just type what you don't understand, Malika should give you a quick explanation on the chat. But anyway, later on, if the slides are shared, I'm not sure if it will be. There's a link here, and this link, the code will be there. You guys can have a good look at it and see play around with it a little bit and just understand what it's doing. So to move on, someone on the waiting room. Okay, so another loop we're going to look at is a while loop. A while loop is usually used when we don't really know how many times a repetition will be done. It's uncertain depending on the program. It might depend on the user's input. So in this case over here, we have a piece of code, we have a program, and I'm going to explain to you guys using the flow chart on the left here. So how does a while loop work? While loop is based on a condition. The while loop will only work if its condition is satisfied. So let's look at this loop over here. The first thing, we have a variable, and it's the variable is set to 5. As the loop is initialized, so the syntax for the loop is while n is greater than 0. What does that mean? So that means that the code inside the loop will only run if n is greater than 0. So let's look at the flowchart over here. N is equal to 5. We check its condition. Is n greater than 0? If n is 5, then it is greater than 0. Therefore, we perform the loop and we print n. So we print 5, as you can see here. And we also subtract 1 from n. And we go back to the loop. So what's the value of n now? N is now 4. Is n still greater than 0? And it is greater than 0. Therefore, we print again, take away 1 from the value, and we go back to check its condition again. Once you enter the loop, it does not exit the loop unless its condition is not satisfied. So as you guys can see here, the first time it goes through the loop, the value of n is 5. afterwards, we subtract 1, it goes down to 4, then 3, then 2, then 1. After it gets to 1, it subtracts 1 last time, and we check its condition again. N is now 0. Is n greater than 0? N is not greater than 0. Therefore, its condition is not satisfied. And we go on the other side of the flow chart instead of printing n. So what do we print? We print blast off, and we just print the value of n at the end, just to end the program. So does that make sense to you guys? If there's any questions, feel free to ask on the chat. We're gonna loop since while loops are controlled by conditions, you can run into some problems. We're going to look at some other different ones now. So for example, on to the next loop over here, where is it? Does anyone want to guess? So this is an infinite loop, but does anyone want to guess why it is an infinite loop? Yeah, Isaac is correct. So every time the loop, so we set a condition, n is 5. The condition is satisfied, and we have now entered the loop. So yes, we print level, we print rinse, and we go back to check the condition. But n is still 5. So we'll print it again. We go to check this condition, and it's still 5. So there's never an instance where its condition is changed. So since n will always be greater than 0, it will keep printing the two values. So just to give you guys a visual representation, I'm going to put this on the IDE just to show you guys. Let's go back. Better understanding. How do I? Okay, so we have the code here. So this should run an infinite amount of times because, oh, this is the wrong code. 1 second. As you guys can see here, it just keeps going. It never stops. Therefore, it's an infinite loop. So, an infinite loop. Let's look at another form of a loop. So this is. Does anyone want to take a guess on what this loop is doing or what it's going to do, or if there's anything wrong with it? You guys can have a good look at it. You guys can you guys can also copy the code and put in you guys ID and see what it does, so you guys understand that now. Quickly go through it. Let's see. Let's think. Level rinse forever. So Isaac, do you mean for this code, or is that the answer to the previous one? I'm not quite sure. We're learning about loops today's lesson. I know you came a bit late, but even if you are a bit late, I'm believing tomorrow's lesson will still do some sort of loops that we will still go over loops. Don't forget to dry off. So yeah, so the problem with this loop is that we set on the previous cases, we set the variable n to 5. Therefore, it satisfied the condition of the while loop, which is it greater than 0? But in this case over here, we set the value straight to 0, and it never satisfies the case. Therefore, we'll never enter the loop, and it will just print dry off. So as you can see on the flowchart on the left, we initialize the variable n with 0. We check if n is greater than 0. N is not greater than 0, and it never will be because it doesn't run the loop, and therefore the value of n will never be changed. So we ignore the loop and we just print the straight code afterwards. Any questions so far? So since we have looked at an infinite loop, we're going to look at how to break out of an infinite loop. So if we look at this code over here, we set an infinite loop because we set the condition of the loop to true, and there's nothing that changes the condition of the loop. So therefore, it will continue to run it. But there is one way to get out of the loop. So, if you guys see what the code is doing is it's initializing a variable. It asks the user to input. Any input that is done by the user, we go into an if statement and it checks if the input is done. If it is done, then it breaks and it prints the line. Sorry. If it is done, then it breaks and exits the loop. However, if it's not, if it's anything else, if it doesn't match with done, the condition will stay true. It will just repeat what you guys have entered. The code will just keep running. So for example, here, as you guys can see the outputs. So the user is asked to input something. They type hello there. Hello there is not the same as done. Therefore, the break function is not triggered. It repeats what they have said. They're asked again to input something. They type finished, still not done. But on the third time, they do enter done. So as you guys can see, if the condition of the if statement is met, the break function is triggered, and therefore we exit the loop and we just print done. Does that make sense to you guys? If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. In fact, let's look how the break statement works. Let's do this ourselves, sorry. Just to give you guys a visual representation of this. So we set the condition to true and we get the input. So this is where execute this line over here, where the variable asks us to enter an input. So we can type anything. There's no specification of what we have to type. So let's type hello. We go to the next line. It checks the condition. So whatever we've entered is stored inside the variable line. So is line equal to done? It's not. I just entered hello. Therefore, it stays inside the loop. It just prints what I've entered, and we repeat the process again. Still not the same. Type anything. It's not going to work. It will keep going. It will never stop until it has to be. So if you do done, it's still not going to work because it doesn't match. It has to be a lowercase done for the if statement to be satisfied, and it will trigger the break. So if you type done exactly the way they want us to do it, you guys will see we exit the loop and we print the last function here, which is we're done with the code. We're not inside the loop anymore. Therefore, the program has ended. Does anyone have any questions about the break? So the double equal just checks the content of so check if it's the same. So is line the same as or equal to like done? Check if the values are the same. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay, so we do have 15 minutes left, so I think I went a bit too fast. But if anyone has any questions, we have some time left now. If you guys feel free to ask anything. And
like I just wanted to say, I know Rudy asked in the chat about the dice rolling exercise, so I think it would be good for us to go over that again. And
yeah, I don't mind. Let me just quick. Well, I know some of you guys joined late as well, so you guys missed the dice exercise. So since we have some time, let's just do that one more time so the people that have missed it, we can see it again. So the task is to replicate a dice game. When you guys play with dices, what happens? You guys roll a dice and you get a random number. So to replicate such program or such thing, you guys will need some sort of random function. In Python to do this, we have to import the random library to do this, which is on the top of our program, which is type import random. That's all you do. So this allows you to use all the built-in random functions in Python. I will show you guys in a bit how to use it. So don't worry if you guys don't know. So when rolling dice, there's two informations that we need. So we need to know how many sides the dice has to see the maximum number of the number that they can get. Also, we need to know how many times they want to roll the dice. So we can either assume how many times they're going to do this, or we can get the user to input it themselves. For example, let's do size of the dice. So size will equal to an integer, and it will be input. It will be inputted by the user. So yeah, so we're going to ask the user, how many sides does the dice have? And we also will need to know how many times they want to roll the dice. So we need the same thing. We need another variable, rolls. This will equal to integer. It will be inputted by the user. And we're going to ask a question. How many sides does, okay, sorry. How many times do you want to roll? So now that we have these two variables and the user will give us numbers for it, we can initiate our for loop. We will know how many times we have to run the for loop for, because if they want to roll the dice 5 times, we're going to have a loop that goes over 5 times and prints 5 different results. If they want to do it 10 times, 10 different results. To do this, first of all, we initiate a for loop. So we do for our variable for the loop, which will be changing every single time to keep track of how many times we did an iteration. In range. So the range. So as I said before, if the user wants to roll the dice 5 times, the loop will run 5 times. If they want to do it 10 times, the loop will run 10 times. Therefore, the value for how many times the loop is going to run for is inside our variable rolls. Okay? If that makes sense to everyone. If you have any question, feel free to ask on the chat. Malika will help you. And to simply output our result, all we need is a print statement. And so let's say result for the dice roll. We will need to generate a random number, right? So to do this, we're just going to add a comma to separate the two things. And we're going to use the random function. So to print a random number with a random function, the syntax for it is you type random dot rand int, which stands for random integer. But to use this, you guys will need to give it a minimum number and a maximum number. So when you roll a dice, the minimum number has to be 1. And the maximum number, as you guys saw before, we asked the user how many sides the dice will have. So on a 6-sided dice, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But if the dice has 5 sides or 10 sides, the maximum number will be 5 or 10. Therefore, the maximum number there can be is stored inside our variable size, which is given to us by our user. So we do 1, sides. So start at 1, maximum, whatever the size is. So if we run this code, hopefully we should have a simple dice game. So how many sides does the dice have? Let's do a simple common one. It's 6-sided dice, and we want to roll it 6 different times. The result will be 6, 3, 3, 5, 5, 5. So it's just to I'll run it for you guys again. So you just can see that it is random. 6, 6 again. So the result is 2, 2, 5, 3. Let's have a look. What do you mean by size plus 1? What type of die? Let's do 6 sides. So it seems that you've put an if statement in here. So while invalid, I'm not sure why you have a while loop here. Input, okay. If number in die invalid equals false, else that's invalid, try again. That's invalid, try again. So you're checking if Malaka, do you mind looking at this as well? I'm not sure what's going on here. I think on this you made it a lot more complicated than it should have been. We don't need a while loop since we're assuming that the we'll get the users to input. You mean this one? Is this the one you're talking about, Kamal? Yeah. So yeah, for Ocean as well, if you just copy this one, and also if later they give you the slides, see a mistake. Oh, that's great. So hopefully later on tomorrow you guys will find out if we do get the slides to the lessons. Therefore, it'll be easier for you guys because I don't know if you guys saw on the slides. There's a link. That's perfect. There's a link in which you guys can copy. I'll show you guys the link. Yeah, I'll quickly change slides if you guys don't mind. So you guys see there's a link here. Actually, I think I can give you guys this link. Let me just quickly check. Yeah, so there's the same game in here, and therefore I'll give you guys this link on the chat. So if anyone came late or missed it, they can have a quick look at the code whenever they want to and play around with it. So that's all for today's lesson. We covered some loops. We covered 4 loops. We looked at some while loops. We looked at some infinite loops. For tomorrow's lesson, you guys will be creating a game. I think Malika here will be you guys 2 or 4 tomorrow, in which you guys will look at a bit more on loops at loops. So hopefully you guys will get a better understanding of how to use them, when to use them, the different things you can do with them. And yeah, that's all for today. If you have any questions, feel free to ask on the chat. You're welcome.
No worries. We hope you're enjoying the lessons and you join us for the rest of the week.
Yeah, hopefully we see you guys tomorrow and the day after.
You guys enjoying your half-term break?
You're welcome. You're welcome, Azam. Welcome, Ruby. Oh, I think April's disconnected. You're welcome. You're welcome. Can you hear me, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay. Glad you enjoyed it. Bye, 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 bye. Do I stay here until 11?
Yeah, I think if there are no questions, we can just drop off and end the meeting. Sorry, but thanks everyone, and yeah, see you tomorrow. Bye.
See you guys tomorrow. Bye bye. How do I end the meet?
I think you just.
Let's pause share. Stop share. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for listening. Hopefully I'll see you guys tomorrow. And hopefully the day after. Enjoy the rest of you guys' break. See ya.